All right, guys, so the next section here that we're working on is the rudder assembly. Now, the instructions are quite vague here, so they basically tell you to make these, the linkages to 14 centimeters is what I gathered from the picture. Here it shows the servo pointing this way on the surface. Then when you go on to the next page, the servo is flipped around and it's pointing the other direction. So anyways, what I did is I made up the linkages to 14 centimeters, and they are way too short. So basically, it's a fairly simple thing to assemble. The downside is that it doesn't go together real simple. So basically, when I had the servo mounted in there, the linkages were way too short. So I've got to extend them, and because they mount on the underside of the servo horn, it's not an easy thing to just pop in and get set up. So it's a bit of a pain, but I'll show you guys some pictures when it's all said and done. The elevator assembly is all together. I think I showed you guys this before. So all together here, it does go together quite nicely, and basically just a single bolt holding it on. The actual surfaces of the control rods for the elevator is very, very simple to mount, but that's it. The instructions don't talk about mounting the cover plates and everything yet, so we'll leave those off, but that is where we are at, guys. All right, guys, so I got the rudder all set up. You can kind of see it there. I did have to flip the servo around, so the output on the servo was closer to the rudder. And basically, if it was flipped around the other way, the rods couldn't go long enough and still have enough bite into the ball ends. So basically, I am not using that plastic Dubro arm. I was just using that to set it up. But you can see there, the underside is where you want to mount the ball arms, and then that's pretty straightforward there. So got it all set up, and basically that I'm going to switch that arm out for a different arm that's fits it. There's actually a lot of play in that Dubro arm as well. There's about probably a 1/4 inch of play, and it's not in the servo. The servo is brand new, zero slop. It's actually the arm moving on the spline, so not good. Obviously, you don't want to keep that. So rudder is almost done, other than switching out that the servo arm. All right, guys, so I'm doing a little bit of flipping back and forth now and not following the manual 100%. Now, the reason for that is I'm waiting for the parts order from DreamWorks, and also waiting for the gear, the cockpit, and the lighting kit as well, too. So the rear end of the plane is done, but I don't want to put it together. I don't want to put the rudder on because I need to mount the lights in the tail and stuff. So that's where we're at. So I'm flipping through the manual a little bit as far as the build goes. This section here, just finished, I glued this in last night, so it's just the battery tray. Pretty straightforward, nothing special. I assembled it all together. This section back here, where the that permanently mounts to the tray, I glued that on a couple days ago with Hysol, and then put it together in there. And on the rear part of the tray, I put some Hysol in there. And that was yesterday, so it should be glued nice and strong now, and I can go back and touch it up once it's once I take the tray out. All right, guys, a couple little things that I've accomplished here. Battery tray is painted and sealed. Nothing super extravagant there. And I did add a little reinforcement piece to the battery tray in the nose. So I figured the cross brace on the nose was a little bit thin, and for the amount of batteries we plan on putting on this tray, I figured it might be a good idea to reinforce it. So I'll show you in a second here. Basically, I just put a flat piece of plywood high-soled across the top there, so it adds a little bit of extra support for the nose tray, and I'll bolt it in now and show you what that looks like in a second. Alright, guys, so there's the battery tray bolted in place. The intention or the reason to paint it is it's going to be coming in and out, and to charge the batteries. So basically that's why I painted it, just so it stays nice looking and it's a bit more durable. The intention basically is to have all the batteries mounted in the nose, weight depending of course, and when we want to charge the batteries, what we'll do is reach through the front of the fuselage into the nose, undo that bolt, that single bolt right there, and can do that through the gear as well too, and just pull all the batteries out. There's going to be additional connectors right in this section right here to mount or to plug the batteries into, so they'll be really easy to disconnect from the fuselage, and that's how we've decided to build it. I've seen some guys online put an access panel in this area of the nose cone, and the owner of the plane is not super excited about that, so we've decided to leave it that way for now. And I figure that access panel and removing the front there would be easy enough to charge the batteries fairly simply. So that is the front tray. All right, guys, and we got some goodies showing up today in the mail. We got a couple things. The first thing we got was the Unilight bundle. The Pro system designed specifically for the L39, the quarter scale, so designed for this airplane. So I figured we'll unbox this thing and show you what's in there. Obviously, I've been digging around through this thing already. So we've got a couple different, well, there's 8 lights in total. I'm actually not sure what they're all for. We'll have to figure that out. But we've got the 2 of the wingtip lights. These are for the front of the pods. So those should be super bright. I'm really impressed with these lights too. Like, you look at the heat shrink on there, and it's just amazing. So there's that. These are the navigation lights, also for the wings. So one is marked in green. You can see it there. It's going to be a three light setup. I'm not sure how it's going to work, but that's awesome. And this one's the red setup, and same thing there. So that's awesome. This one is a strobe, ultra strobe. So I'm assuming this probably goes on the top of the airframe, but that is a wicked little setup. It comes with a bunch of different reflectors as well too, so we'll have to see how that all works. Here's the controller. So it's the Pro controller, which is 8 channels. I had that open and I was reading the instructions on it. Let's see, there's this one, which not entirely sure what that's for, but it's a red light. So that is, we'll have to figure out what that one's for. That's a single as well too, so there's not a match to that one. There's this setup, which is, it's a white LED. So nice little setup there. Again, I'm not sure what that's for. It's probably going to be for either the back of the tail, I'm thinking. But then there's also this one as well too, which is a smaller white light. So you can see it there. So one of those is probably going to go in the back of the rudder. I have to figure out which one. And then there's the 2 reflectors for the landing lights, or for the lights on the front of the pod. So awesome setup today. I'm glad this all showed up, because this is one of my hang-ups with mounting the rudder and stuff on the airplane, was getting the lighting run through the surface. We also got a massive order from DreamWorks today, so we got basically all the build pieces today. There should be, most of our supplies are here to build this airplane. Really happy and excited about that, because we need all these little parts to do everything. So wicked order. It's amazing how quickly that stuff adds up, and but it does add up, and it's really necessary. So great that these things showed up today. There's really going to be no more delays in the build, other than we're waiting for the gear, number 1, which is kind of important. We're waiting for the cockpit, number 2, and I think that's about it. So, and then of course the retracts with the gear as well. But that's where we're at. All right, guys, so picked up a metal servo horn. I was able to find one locally, finally today, at one of our local hobby shops, and get the rudder all finished up. So basically we've got the aluminum servo horn on there. The rudder is all set up now, and much better than the plastic one we had on there before. And everything's working perfectly. So nice thing about the X-Bus servos is we're able to set up the movement and everything straight away here. So it's all programmed into the servo, so the servo is centered, and it's got 75 millimeters of surface movement in each direction. I think that's what we're running, but anyways, that gives us a good baseline, and it's nice and even right now, and we don't have to adjust anything else in the transmitter. It's all set up in the servo. So rudder's all done. Next step, probably going to get done today, is mount the light inside the tip of the rudder. So it goes right in there. Shouldn't be too bad. We've got a pretty good path through the front of the rudder. So the front surface there, and it'll go all the way up to the tip there. So should work out well. I'll post some video, or I'll have some video of that when it's all set up and done. All right, guys, so I'm working on mounting the light, the Unilight, on the rudder. Now this is the smallest white strobe that came in the kit, so it is designed to go on the rudder. Now the little tube piece, or whatever, the little scale imitation light section, was too small for this to fit inside. So I did try drilling it out, but if you look at that size there, it doesn't allow for the installation of that that particular LED inside. So what I did was cut this piece off. I added a little, it's going to be hard to see, a little groove down here. So I just dremeled that out a little bit, and that's so the wires have somewhere to sit. It's a little hard to do this with one hand, but basically that's what it's going to end up looking like. I'm going to high saw that in place, and should be just fine. Then I'll touch this area up with some black paint, and that's what it's going to end up looking like. So it should be awesome. The nice thing about doing that versus running it inside, I guess, is this LED will still be able to dissipate heat instead of being stuck inside the fiberglass. So working on that next. All right, guys, so the rudder is done for now anyways. There's the Unilight rudder. You can see there, based on the size, that there was really no good way to get that mounted internally. So that's what I was talking about with cutting away the rudder, mounting it on there. I think what I'm going to end up doing is painting the fins here probably black, and just touching it up a little bit, but I'll do that later with a brush. I did have to extend the wire. So what I did was cut the end off the wire. The stock wire came to about here on the rudder, and then I just soldered some power box wire on there and took the red off. But so that's basically our hookup now for the rudder light. So and I'll put a connector on there, probably just a servo connector, so it can be removable as well. So, but that is basically the rudder at this point. I'm going to move on to the next surface, which is going to be the other wing most likely. But anyways, that's the rudder. Just one little note here, it talks about in the manual as well, but put a piece of 4mm Festo tubing over top of this bolt to secure the wing, and that just prevents the bolt from falling out, because there's enough space here where the bolt can just fall out. So if you're transporting it, it would just pop out. That's basically the rudder.